Welcome to our posts. Today. We will see stories of r/malicious compliance. You don't want to pay the estimate? That's fine, ma'am. Enjoy your day. For context, the software development company I used to intern at uses a sheet to estimate the cost of building a certain software or update for a client. This sheet includes employees working on the project, how long they estimate it'll take, yada yada yada. After an intern goes around the departments collecting this info from the various employees, we then calculate the cost and send it to the client to accept or reject. Note: since our company is so popular in the area, we have a pretty long query sometimes, so if you reject the estimate, chances are you might have to wait in the queue all over again to request a new one. So the day was slow, and they mostly had me man the phones and go on coffee runs, typical intern stuff. Then a client calls in saying she wants a piece of clock-in software for her employees so she can more accurately track their work hours. By this point into my internship, I had done at least 4 or 5 of these sheets at least, and I was taught by my supervisor how to identify which departments would be needed for which projects. So after gathering the details from the client, I hang up and translate the needs for the employees, essentially explain it in programmer jargon. Half an hour later, I'm done with the sheet and I have checked the calculations 3 times, so I email it to the client, and I swear not even 2 minutes later I get a estimate rejected message on the company smartphone I was given. She added a reply stating, "This estimate is non-compliable with me," so I respond to it with, "We are sorry to hear that, ma'am. Please enjoy the rest of your day," and then I go about my business. Roughly an hour later, she emails the phone again asking, "Is that all you have to say?" By this point, I realized what she was trying to do and report to my supervisor that Ms. Karen was trying to haggle the price. My supervisor calls Karen's phone and asks if she would like to have the estimate resent to her so she can accept, and Karen outright tells her she wants a cheaper price. To which my supervisor tells her the price is non-negotiable and to take it as is. So Karen uses her signature move of, "Let me speak with your manager." But my supervisor simply informed her that she'd get the same response and just hung up on her. Karen eventually did call back and even showed up to the building to renegotiate the price, but was shot down. But she was able to get a meeting with the manager to file a complaint for poor customer service and unprofessional behavior. My supervisor and I were called in and asked for our side of the exchange. We just gave them the chat log and proof that she rejected the estimate initially sent to her. She had no color in her face after those came out and couldn't even look at him. She was given a blacklist for us and recommended other companies. Next story. Attendance isn't mandatory. Okay. Hello everyone, I'm on mobile so formatting isn't great. Also, English isn't my first language. Regardless, here goes my story. Background: I went to university in Germany. A part of my curriculum were courses in sociology and philosophy. A lot of those were marked down as successfully attended without getting graded. Usually you proved attendance with a list you signed every time. The characters: pissed and angry. The 2 professors' assistants who were probably forced to teach the course. Me. The roughly 100 other students. The situation: pissed and angry had to teach a course about important figures in sociology. It was already a dry topic, but the real issue was their behavior. When pissed talked, you could hear the hate drip from her every word. When angry talked, it felt like getting yelled at. We hated just being there, but we needed to complete the course. The first 2 times, like usual, the list would go round, and we wrote down our names, student ID, and email. The 3rd time, however, the lecture was almost over, and the list hasn't gotten to me yet. So I raised my hand and asked about it. Me, excuse me, the list didn't get around to us yet. Angry, very annoyed at the interruption, what list? Me, the one for attendance. Angry, that wasn't an attendance list. We needed your names and email to send out the assignment to complete the course. The assignment was just a 3-page essay about a randomly selected sociologist. Nothing you couldn't do with just Google. Me, so there isn't a mandatory attendance? Angry, no. I think you can all see where this is going. Malicious compliance. I looked at my buddies, they shrugged, and we just up and left. What I didn't see coming was how almost everyone else saw this as their cue to leave as well. I will never forget the dumbfounded faces of pissed and angry. Aftermath. A while later, we got our assignments, finished them, and sent them in, thus successfully completing the course. For the rest of the semester, only 3 students still showed up so pissed and angry had to teach a practically empty classroom that could fit around 200 people. Edit: a comment reminded me of a detail I forgot to mention. The following year, this course among several others that students just never frequented were changed from lectures to seminars, which formally allowed to enforce attendance. Apparently, professors were quite irate at how students skipped boring gooseless courses if given the opportunity. Next story. If you insist, sir, I hope you like pink. I've worked my way up the ladder at the company where I work, but when I started, I was a support agent. By the time this story happened, I was a team lead of some kind. I don't remember which. What matters is that I still worked directly supporting customers, but I also had a fair amount of agency. I didn't have to ask for permission or assistance to do anything related to my job. We're a software company, but we used to sell a specific small Bluetooth accessory that worked with one of our apps. It came in several bright colors and we sold multi-packs. It was the kind of device you might need more than one of, and it was a popular gift. Next story. Classic just get on with the effing job. This was from a few years ago while working in an assembly line for food. We used to get orders that we would make up for distribution. For example, 1,000 lasagna microwave meals, 800 bolognese, etc. As all the products were perishable, we tried not to overfulfill the orders at all, as the chances of us being able to place elsewhere was slim due to the time factor. I lead one of the lines and one day I get the order through at 10x, its usual volume. I go to speak to the boss to double check and he turns on me. Asks if I am incompetent and tells me just get the crap done. Okay boss, whatever you say. We usually process about 4 different lines a day, and when he came for his check in around halfway through the shift was when the crap hit the fan. It was then he realized that there was a mistake and we had overproduced the order by 5x at that point. There was nothing he could say but to move on to the next line. He had to eat a huge loss on his figures for waste. It was glorious. One year during the Christmas season, our manufacturer effed up gloriously. They didn't deliver all of the inventory we were supposed to get, and worse, much of what we did get was messed up and had serious defects. It was a horrible mess and a serious detriment to our small company. I was on the front lines of cleaning it up. We wound up severely backordered at the busiest time of year, having sold units that should have been delivered, but that we either never received or found to be defective upon arrival. We had to contact people and let them know their orders would be delayed until after the holidays. Some people wanted refunds, some people wanted their items late. We tried to be helpful and bent over backwards to be apologetic while trying to keep this debacle from becoming a catastrophe and incentivize people not to cancel. There was one man who wanted us to perform magic. However, he wanted his order our largest multi-pack and he wanted it now. I don't know how many times he contacted us, but I wound up being the only one to deal with him because he'd always be escalated to me. I told him over and over again that we couldn't send his order even though we very much wanted to, so we'd be happy to refund him. If he wanted to wait, there were many others ahead of him to get their orders. He demanded that he get his order first. He didn't care who else had to wait. He would berate me and try to literally command me to do as he said almost daily for a while, no matter how many times I explained why I literally couldn't. Eventually, I opened the spreadsheet where we were keeping our back orders and moved him to the very bottom. Yeah, I was prolonging my own suffering, but he had me feeling petty. After the holidays ended and upper management waged a nuclear war with our manufacturer, usable stock started rolling in. I bumped a few deserving or eager customers to the top of the list, but mostly sent them out in order. He's the only one I bumped down, but I had something ready for the next time he decided to scream at me. When he inevitably did, I told him we had stock, but others were receiving theirs first, and we hadn't yet gotten in the colors he ordered in his multi-pack. I was sort of planning to do what I did anyway, but he was kind enough to give me explicit permission. I don't care what colors you send, you're to send them to me immediately. Our colors included Susan G. Komen pink. The customer was gloriously smug and condescending when I told him we'd go ahead and fulfill his order right away. He definitely thought he had won some kind of victory. But sure enough, the day his package arrived, he sent an email complaining. I know I said I'd accept any color, but really? You sent me, a man, an order of nothing but pink? I want these replaced. Send me something else. I told him that's all we had available for him and that the conversation was over. And so it was. I never heard from him again. It took a few years before I brought it up. But I've told that anecdote at workplace meetings a few times, including to my boss, the CEO. I wouldn't take another support job to save every orphaned puppy on earth, but that story was worth the misery. Always be nice to support agents, for your own sake. Next story. You want the manual physically, okay? For context, I just went into my old workplace and remembered this story. 5 years ago, I used to work for a large electronics store in Scandinavia. We sold everything from TVs to dishwashers. Being a physical store, we had a lot of display items and often sold them at a lower price when the product was discontinued. Please note that we rarely had the original packaging or manuals lying around. This will be important. This story takes place a late afternoon about 30 minutes before closing. I worked this shift in the computer department and was asked to help at the camera section of the store, as I was the go-to person for cameras. I was greeted by a couple, who I would guess were in their late 50s, and they were looking at one of the display models. I walked them through the camera's specs, let them test it out, and explained that while we had all the necessary accessories, the original manual and packaging were thrown away. They seemed perfectly fine with this, especially after I offered them a fantastic deal on the camera. We headed to the checkout, where they paid, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. That is until the husband turned to me and asked, "Where's the manual?" I was thinking, oh shoot, maybe I didn't explain it well enough. I started to explain again, reiterating that we didn't have the original manual, but that it was easily accessible online. I had even included a link to the manual on their receipt. This was not taken well by the husband, who started raising his voice at me and said, "Online? I brought this product and I want the manual physically so I can read through it at home." Which I do understand, and tried explaining that I normally would print the manual. However, the manual for this particular camera was about 650 pages. Please note that they both are more than capable of looking up the manual, as I saw them browsing the web looking at reviews for the camera. The husband angrily started to berate me for about 5 minutes about how this wasn't a way to run a business and how he wouldn't leave without it. I tried explaining that the manual was 650 pages, how long that would take to print, and we were closing in around 10 minutes. But he was having none of it, and he wouldn't leave without it. Now, I am normally a kind and respectful person, and would do everything to fix a problem. But he was being disrespectful, and I was paid by the hour anyway. So with my best customer service voice, I told him, "Sorry sir, of course the customer is always right," and started printing the 650 pages, while the husband looked smugged at me, probably feeling like he had won over the big man. But the thing was, the printers we had at the sales desk were only meant for printing receipts, so they couldn't print double-sided, and though they were relatively fast, they were not 650 pages fast and only held around 300 sheets of paper at a time. As the minutes ticked by, with each sheet of paper that emerged from the printer, the man's smug expression disappeared. His wife, who had initially seemed passive, began to look annoyed and a bit embarrassed. Then the printer ran out of paper, and you could see the relief in their eyes as they thought the printer was finally done. But that was quickly gone when they saw me coming with a huge stack of paper to fill it up. 20 minutes and 400 pages in, the wife started to look even more desperate, realizing that they were the only customers in a store that closed 10 minutes ago. The husband was beginning to realize his mistake and nervously began to ask when it was done printing. I just smiled with my best customer service smile. We were about 2/3 of the way. He sighed and just continued to look at the mountain of paper that slowly got bigger and bigger. Another refill, and 200 pages later, the husband's defeat was evident. He finally asked if he could just take what had already been printed and leave. But by then, only like 50 pages remained. So I told him that we were almost done, and I would hate if he left without the last pages, in case he would miss something important. When the printer finally stopped, I handed him the entire 650-page manual, still smiling, and said, "Here you go. I hope you have a great day and enjoy the camera." They quickly left the store silent and defeated, and I never saw them again. Quick edit to clarify some things. I got paid 1.5 my wage plus afternoon add-on, so staying 30 minutes longer was actually a plus for me. I would have loved to say that the manual was in 6 different languages, but it wasn't. But the manual have so much info that is only relevant if you are a professional photographer, which they were not. Oh, and did I mention that I didn't put any staples or holes in the paper? Good luck keeping it together. Next story. Why are you standing? A long time ago, when mainframes ruled the earth, I was asked to go give an all-day presentation at a military school that had our hardware. It was going to be about our latest networking hardware and software, and as someone that knew lots about it, I was selected. Get set up in the large lecture hall. Pretty soon everyone files in a military fashion, gets seats, and I get the nod from an officer that I'm good to go. Because mom taught me to be nice, I started off with a "Good morning, I'm Kilta," and was drowned out by a loud "Good morning, sir." Wow. Okay, so it's going to be like that. So I get started again, and I'm soon in full marketing professor mode with gestures, arm pointing, pretty much full kabuki theater. Cadet stands up. I stop and go, "Hi, do you have a question?" "Sir, no sir." Weird, but okay. Back to my interpretive dance routine describing a 3-letter networking environment with multiple physical and logical units. Soon another cadet stands up. I stop and go, "Hi, do you have a question?" "Sir, no sir." "Okay, stay calm, Kilted. This will be fine, it's going fine." As I turn back to my slide with pictures with circles and arrows and a paragraph on the side, another cadet stands up. 3 times a charm, maybe a question. "Do you have a question?" "Sir, no sir." "Okay, I have a question. Why are you standing?" "To keep from falling asleep, sir." Ah, the penny drops. Turn to my first standee. "Is that why you are standing?" "Sir, yes sir." A quick look at the final standee, with my eyebrow in a full Spock arch, and they respond, "Sir, yes sir." "Okay, let us take a 20-minute break then." The officer assigned to explain to me that falling asleep would earn punishment, but standing up and then falling asleep was fine. I made sure we had extra breaks for the rest of the day. Next story. No assistant for you? I am an account for a software as a service SaaS company that tends to have some ... interesting ideas on how a business should be run. Yes, I am from Minnesota. Why do you ask? We did $30M in revenue when this issue came up, with myself as the only biller, issuing over 1K invoices every month, the bulk of which needed to be sent by business day 5. I'd asked repeatedly for an assistant specifically for the billing process, and in turn got someone for collections, which I half-assedly had been doing by myself, and managed a 45 DSO. For revenue posting, which wasn't my purview anyway, and for payroll, which I was doing because we literally had no one else. But no assistant budget could be found, per the CFO. My supervisor, the controller, consistently tried to get me one, but was always denied every time she and I asked. One lovely day, we get a new product, Adobe Sign. Our clients can now send documents to their client's tenant for a low price of exorbitant rate for tiered bundles. I was supposed to get a report of how many packages were signed, then compare to what they were being billed, and float up to a higher tier if they used more than they were contracted for 2 months in a row. This worked okay for the first few months, when only 100 or so clients used the product, and I received a summary report of usage. But after those few months, the summary report stopped, and adoption exponentially grew. By April 2020, I was receiving a 1 million row spreadsheet, plus 2 other supplementary sheets that had 0 key identifiers, but no other instruction on how to complete my job. I repeatedly told my supervisor that this wasn't feasible in the long run, and I couldn't figure out how to calculate float-ups, but she was distracted with other things. She 2020 and told me to figure it out. What I figured out is my need for an assistant was imperative now, and I literally couldn't do my job as is, so I didn't. 0 float-ups from October 2020. Come October, sales, account management, and the C-suite finally figure out that Adobe revenue is lower than they expect based on usage. I repeated my complaint that I couldn't get everything done with the data they gave me. Adobe data was the least of the missing incomplete data TBF without losing in particular Adobe float-ups, and everything hit the fan. The CFO demanded a full documentation of the billing process because finance can't be losing so much revenue. Read, why are you guys and specifically me effing up? I just smiled, nodded, and agreed to comply with an outside auditor documenting my billing process to find my holes. In the 4-month process that took about 2 weeks out of every month, I described my process down to the nitty-gritty detail up to and including the fact that I did not have a summarized user log. I got an 18K line user listing that I had to comb through for duplicates since 60% of our clients use 2 of our platforms and we didn't and still don't have single sign-on, so, and then pivot out and associate with each client manually via lookup against a non-key identifier manually entered into Salesforce SFIC. B. There was no DB for which add-on services our clients were using, and our metadata platform AMP was just a manual checkbox for each client and each service upkept by the client's account manager. C. AMP had no reporting functionality to audit client usage versus contracted usage v. billed usage. D. There is more, but I think you get the picture. When the outside consultant gave her report to my supervisor and the CFO, the call was quiet for a long bit. Then the CFO said thank you and disconnected. About 15 minutes later, I get a direct Teams video call from the CFO. Melm 2002, he said, I want to apologize. The fact that company is still a going concern at all is a testament to your hard work. What you have done with the shitty data you've been given is nothing short of amazing. Thank you. Slightly paraphrased, of course, but that was the general gist, the going concern part, though. Direct quote. The next business day, an ad was placed for an assistant for me and for the SFDC deal desk manager. I haven't had to answer my phone or dig in customer emails in 3+ years. I love my assistant and am so glad to have her. She makes my work life 1M times better. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel. Our posts